Recording stopped.
That was quick. Wait, 1 minute.
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 Recording stopped.
That was quick.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, everyone. Let's call the meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, August the 24th, 2021. It is 9:08 a.m. Proof of posting, please.
The agenda was posted on Thursday, August 19th, 2021 at 3:15 p.m.
Thank you. Let's pause briefly for a moment of silence, and then we'll have the pledge to the flags.
Is for all. Now the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
We did not have anybody register for public comments, so we will go to item D, it's budget amendments. Under D1 regarding the FY '22 budget. Francis, under D1.
Yes, sir. So, on the expenditure side of things, before starting to talk again about the tax rate, we did have one last request from Judge Peterson, Justice of the Peace Judge Peterson, and he's here to answer any questions you have. But he has a need that has arisen for a new copier for his office. And he can answer questions on that. But I know it's older and maintenance on it is not doing the job to get it back to where it needs to be. So they do have a quote from CTWP. It's $5,606.60. This would fit in the Justice Assistance and Technology Fund. So if you are agreeable to that, we would adjust the budget for that fund to include that item. There is also a maintenance agreement that goes along with it, and it is $534 a year. But his current general fund budget is sufficient to cover that maintenance cost each year at this point in time.
Okay. Any discussion on that? So it comes out of the Justice Technology Fund. And it's slightly cheaper than some of the
Yeah.
ones we've been buying. It's been running about $7,000.
7, yeah.
So,
Motion to approve.
thank you.
Second.
Have a motion, second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Pass. Thank you. It's not even Christmas yet.
I'd like to apologize. I know how much you guys are on the budget, and I apologize.
No problem.
No problem.
God bless you.
Good to see you,
You
Peter.
too. Thank you.
Take care,
Thank
Pete.
you. So I don't think
Or
unless
better than
there's
14,000.
Good. At a 4-speed.
And unless there's anything else expenditure-wise you'd like to talk about for the budget, we can start, going back to the tax rate and looking at it and see where we want to end up to adopt today.
Okay. Francis, there's, we talked about a couple of different options, and of course, in the last week, we were talking about 42 cents, which would be 2% under the no new revenue rate. And, the good thing about us discussing this is that we fortunately came into this budget year in good shape, thanks to the taxpayers, and although they have had to deal with increased values, we're trying to do our part to keep the tax rate as low as we can. In the discussion, I would, everybody's opinion matters, and I'd like to have a full discussion, get a feeling kind of where how they're feeling, kind of consensus before we vote, before we have a motion and a vote. So I'm gonna take all the time that we need to talk about this. So, Francis?
So, like the judge said, this scenario that's pulled up there is 42 cents. I know last time we met, there was some hesitation, if we should drop it that quickly, or, would that cause issues going forward? So I analyzed it some more and just wanted to just throw out another idea, if it's something that might make you feel more comfortable. So, of course, looking at the 42 cents, and there's a lot of things at play, that, we assume that appraised values will continue to increase going forward. We assume that we will come under budget. And then, of course, we are above our target fund balance. But if, you're able to fund this budget here, if you'll look there, the expenditures are right under 135,000. And of course, this is just general fund. Your revenues being 118.5 million. So you can see there that our expenditures do exceed our revenues. We're able to fund that budget, of course, because of our excess fund balance that's up and above our target. So you'll see that up there in the 61.5 million. So one of my thoughts was that, if you don't want to drop it so quickly, if you do, if you don't want to drop it too quickly, of course, and then in a later year, have to go into fund balance reserves and go below your target. You've worked hard to get there. So if you'll flip to the tax rate one. So I put together a couple scenarios, again, looking at the 42 cents, and then even if you just drop to 43 cents. Haley's highlighting that area there. That shows the no new revenue rate, and then, of course, our current rate and our voter approval rate. I know you're wanting, of course, to go below that no new revenue rate, it sounds like at this point in time. But she'll have those just so we can just look at what we're focusing on. So that scenario one, and this is looking at all funds as a whole. So, we've just been focused on general fund, and what does that look like? So that first column, scenario one, 42 cents. You'll see there at the very bottom that, there's a decrease in the total levy of 946,000 compared to the prior year. And then you'll see our current rate there of 0.468. So it's, almost that's almost a 5-cent drop. If you were to just go down to even 43 cents, you'll see there that the increase in the levy from year to year is $1 million. But then that difference column that's on the far right, that's the difference in the levy between those two scenarios. And you'll stop me if I need to pause for anything or questions. So
that counts as an increase in the tax rate, the amount of levy, that's an increase in the levy?
Correct. So, and going from 42 to 43
We would have
cents.
to vote on that, correct?
Oh, definitely. If you wanted to go up to 43 cents or whatever you decide from 42 to 43 cents. today.
Whatever rate.
Yeah, whatever rate, as long as it doesn't exceed your proposed rate today. So that's showing you there the increase in the levy. So of course, your debt service rate, your INS rate, that's set in stone, nothing we can do there. So going with 43 cents, that would roughly provide an additional $2 million in revenue. My thought is that if you wanted to do something like that and not drop the rate so drastically this year, that you could shift that $2 million in revenue over to the permanent improvement fund. We briefly discussed this earlier in the summer, and there wasn't a lot of discussion. Y'all seem to be good with just putting $500,000 in the permanent improvement fund. But I think shifting some over to permanent improvement isn't a bad idea, just my opinion, for several reasons. One, this would, prevent you from drastically dropping it this year if that's something that you feel you didn't want to do this year. It's going to also, of course, build up the fund balance in your permanent improvement fund. So that's going to be there for future projects. You may not have to rely on debt in the future if a project arises. But that is there. That's there for permanent improvement projects. And then also that in future years, you would have the ability to shift that portion of the M&O rate back to general fund if needed. It would also give you time to see, hey, you did want to drop that rate, but it would give you time to look at trends and see where the next years fall. So just a different scenario to look at there. And if you have any thoughts or questions, please let me know. Or
I have a
adjust.
couple of thoughts. Thank you. like I said, we're very fortunate to be in a position here that made budgeting a lot easier for a lot of reasons. And then, you know, thank y'all for making it easy for us, how you put the budget together. The Permanent Improvement Fund has limitations of what it can be used for. And so it, you know, it can't be used for incidental expenses and those type budget items, only for capital improvements or asset, I guess, large asset purchases are primarily
Primarily, improvements
Improvements to
to
the-
facilities or
yeah.
to locations.
it adds to the, I guess you could say, if it was a private piece of property, it increased the equity or value in the program. The fact that we've got growth in this community, and it's caused us to have discussion about expanding courts, expanding facilities, considering stepping outside this footprint of the courthouse to either purchase or build on property that we have for more judicial capacity is a real thing. Then we're gonna have to do it. And having some equity in it through the contribution out of the Permanent Improvement Fund, along with debt, is a good combination. In fact, it's, you know, if you go to the bank to borrow money for a car, they want you to put a little equity in it. And it makes sense and levels a little bit the amount of debt. We can stretch our money further by using that. And, you know, my idea would be cover a lot of the soft cost, architectural design, engineering, those kind of things, and then use debt for the more hard assets would be a concept that I would support. The fact that it's going to the Permanent Improvement Fund gives you the flexibility in future years that if you think that's overfunded or your plans change out front, you can still roll it back in to the general fund to lower the tax rate or to absorb some of the tax rate that may come in the future. It's like, to me, this budgeting process is not necessarily looking at 1 year. It's kind of like playing chess. You need to be thinking about 2 or 3 moves ahead. And I think with this kind of approach, it would keep us from having a knee-jerk reaction if things change, and they will change. I don't think, and I've expressed to others, that I don't think that we're going to see any kind of negative change in regards to values over the next year or two. But I also don't think there's going to be any change in our need to build more permanent improvement type projects as well. So it gives us an option and more flexibility. I'm not embarrassed to say that 43 cents is $1 or 1 cent below the no new tax revenue rate. I think it's wise to support that tax rate, and it's also wise to be able to plan for the future. And I'd like to have full discussion. I'd like to kind of get the feeling how everybody feels before someone steps out for a motion. So,
Well, real quickly, on the Permanent Improvement Fund, through the years, I just remember, so back, what year did we shift? Was it in 18 or 19 that we did the shift?
I believe
We
it was
quit
19.
funding it as much because we really weren't spending that money in there.
And so
That's,
it had built up a little bit of fund balance. And so, yes,
so
there was,
what is projected to be spent in, so that's your estimated beginning fund balance right there.
for next year, yes, sir.
For next year. And so, what is that? How much has been, let's look at a trend and
Definitely.
see what's been.
But you're showing a budget expenditures next year of about 1.6 or 1 point, almost 1.
So that 1.6, that is actually there's $677,000 worth of projects that TJ presented to you and you approved, and the other millions contingency,
Contingency. yeah.
Contingency.
which is just allowing you to spend that fund balance next year for projects that arise during the year. Sorry, it's going slow.
While we're waiting, I do know that in 2014, we had to rely on dollars in the permanent improvement fund because we got upside down in the budget, and it helped us, it was a place to reverse that money out of there.
And we also pulled money out of road and bridge
Right, you're right.
contingency, fund balance also. We merged all those into
Right.
the general fund.
Yes, sir.
Agreed, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just spinning right now. Maybe here you'll have better luck. I wonder what the history graph looks like. Yeah, where's it? No, you're good.
Were we looking at a history of the permanent fund?
Yes, we were pulling up expenditures in the permanent improvement fund. We're just trying to find the best way for y'all to view it.
Simplest is best for me.
Yes, sir. It's hard to see up there, I know, so we were just trying to. So you'll see all of those numbers at the bottom. There's one that says actual. It's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. So those are, of course, 2021 is to date. But you'll see there what we have spent in total for all expenditures the last 2 full years. So 2020, 1.1 million. In 2019, we spent 536,000. And again, oh, sorry, go ahead.
But the first line is the original budget for that year.
Correct.
So in fiscal year 2019, 2.285, and actually spent, what does it say, 36,000?
536, 430.
That one she has highlighted.
536, okay.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry.
I need
No,
a
yeah,
laser
so
pointer.
We spent less than a,
Yes, and so that's because, we always have budgeted contingency in that fund. It can only be used for the purpose that it's there for, so we do budget contingency there. We've also, starting with 2016, have been issuing bonds. So we haven't been relying on this fund as much because there have been bond funds available to fund our projects. So. Yeah, go ahead, I guess. And then we'll move over to, here's 16, 17, and 18. Again, pretty comparable numbers. I think if you look at them as a whole. So their actual in 18 was a little over $1 million, and then $500,667,000. So that's how your expenditures have been tracking. But again, we have had bond funds that have covered a lot of the projects.
can you go back to the 19 one again?
Sure.
The one that had the 1920? Okay. 30, 65%. So the high percentage-wise year was 2020, 65%. Anybody else have a question on these slides? If not, I was gonna ask.
Just one. In the last 5 years, how many times have we gone out for a bond? How many times have we issued?
16, 17, 19, and then this bond that we are in the process of completing. We did have a bond in 20. You'll see that activity if you ever looked at it, but 20 was the zoo bond.
Okay,
So 16, 17, 19.
okay.
21.
And then in 21. Okay.
And then there's the venue
18.
bond was 18.
Well, and then in 18 was, or what year was the base?
That was in 18.
That was in 18, yeah.
So yeah, 16.
18.
But it didn't affect
Right.
any of the revenues from,
And we issued all those bonds really without increasing
right.
the INS rate at all,
Correct.
and due to our increase in valuations.
Yes. And then, you know, some of those older bonds, there were some years in the last 5 years where some of those had fallen off. We had paid the last payment, so that cleared up some space
Okay,
in
so
the tax rate.
from 16 to 21 in the issuance of those debts, we never did once have to do an increase to the tax?
For debts, for INS, I'd have to look to tell you for sure. I know there hasn't been a substantial change in the INS rate.
I
but
think
can
that's
get it for
correct.
you.
That we haven't had, it's, a room was allowed by paying off. In other words, old debt pays off, and that gave us room to add more debt.
Okay.
Our financial advisor also too
Back in.
structures the payments such that the front end of the bonds keeps the front end payments, the first couple of years of payments on the bond are structured such that it does not increase our INS rate. They have that ability to do that.
Because, you know, we have all debt service schedules for all of those bonds that we're sitting on right now. You know, we know what we're gonna pay every single year, principal and interest to the penny. So he's able, like Commissioner Jones was saying, to fit those in, you know, so that it doesn't affect our tax rate. And then,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead, it's fine.
Have we ever refinanced any, or rates have been so low all the way back to 16 that
We have refunded.
We refunded.
we have done some refinance on it to get a better rate?
So there was one bond that had the ability to do that.
Okay.
And it was like an 06 or something like that.
I think that's right.
And in 16, when it came callable, we refinanced it.
That's a good thing to
And
stay on top of.
and we, you know, we track, you know, if any, I can't remember when the next one will become callable, if one will, but when it does, you know, we'll always
All of our
alert
current-
y'all and let you know when
But
to look
to
into that.
answer your question, all of our, to add on to the answer, all of our current debt has been issued in this pre-2008 rate environment. That's historically low,
Okay,
abnormally historically
which it
low.
is now too. Okay.
Which probably won't change for the next, much in the next year or
Yeah.
two.
No,
I don't think
you're
they
right.
can.
You're right. That second slide, or what PowerPoint that you had up a minute ago that showed the difference between the 42 and the 43 from 900,000 to the red to 2 million to the good, or,
Yes, sir.
yeah, right there.
Yes.
What rate would it take between 42 and 43 to zero that number out
I
right
was
there?
thinking that same thing.
So it should be right under
about
42 and a
1,000,000
half.
Well, it'd be,
It'd be
42
somewhere
and a half.
between 42 and 43.
because at $20 million, at a $20 billion value, so that's going to be $2 million per cent.
So 425 would go from 946 in the red to 58,595 in the black.
You know, and then getting that close to 60,000 is almost there, almost to zero there.
425 would do that.
Yes, sir. So 4249999. But then
So
like,
plug that .425 into the main summary and see what our fund balance looks like in the end after that.
and then this, of course, this is still just putting
So you're-
500,000 to permanent improvement.
Right. So you're,
Permanent improvement, yeah.
so you're 1,000,008 over 34 and 3.1 over 33.
That's correct. And we have 34 there because, you know, we had talked about that for just discussion purposes. We wanted to leave that there to continue those talks. But yes,
So-
that's correct.
So the ending fund would be 35.4, or what are you saying?
Yes,
At .425, it would be 35.4% ending fund balance.
in general fund, yes. If you did not,
And in dollars, that would be how much over our target of 33?
that,
3,193,616?
yes, sir. And that's without shifting any of that additional above 42 cents to permanent improvement. This scenario is still just taking $500,000 worth of levy from M&O and putting that in permanent improvement.
So put another 500,000 in permanent improvement.
And I look at the target, as a minimum. You know, we just don't want to go under that without,
So,
but going
Now
over
put,
it.
now do 42 cents. You're still above your targets.
I'm a little camera shy, paying the additional expenditures with beginning fund balance. Because that's in essence what we're doing
Yeah, well,
with the level of revenue that we say we're bringing in and the level of expenditures that we are approving. In essence, what we're doing, we're paying close to 20% of that growth from the fund balance. And what we,
and that's, you know, in, in that-
so next year, what you do is you start with a fund balance that's lower. If we keep that trend, you'll eventually run out of surplus if you don't at least balance your budget.
If
by
you-
having revenue
yes,
match expenditure.
if you had no growth and we were spending
Yeah.
budget to the penny, you know, no excess budget, no,
How much under budget are we gonna be this, where are we at now on that?
so, our estimate is, I'll pull it up for you. But Commissioner Miller, while I'm pulling that up, you know, yes, you are using fund balance to fund that budget. But that's the only way, you know, really to get that fund balance down. You know, to
Yeah,
move it. And so,
correct.
but then like you're saying, yes, it's good to think about moving into the future and
Well, I'm thinking about what we told the voters, why we even established the target fund
Reserve.
balance. Yeah, why we never said we're gonna do this and then we're gonna provide tax cuts, although that's honorable. We told them this was for emergencies. We told them that it would be wise spending. And I think if we shift the purpose of the fund balance, then I think we have a problem of credibility with the taxpayer. We either need a fund balance or we don't, in essence. Either there's a reason to have it or it's not. And I think when we reconcile that, it'll help us with what we want to start with. You either need it or you don't.
So last year, we did this. In 2019, we kept the rate the same, which increased taxes. And before that, when we were cutting the tax rate a little bit, we were, you know, since 2014, there's only been 1 year where we didn't cut the tax rate, I think. But our taxes still increased because
15.
because they went because of the valuations.
Our taxes are our revenue. Did our taxes increase or our revenue because of the valuation?
Our gross,
When I say taxes, I say that I mean
Are you talking about levy?
revenue. I mean
Revenue.
they're the same thing.
No, because
Yeah, they're
taxes
the
are what
same
come out of
thing.
your pocket. Revenue is what we generate in order to cover expenditures. And one thing I want to commend the court on doing is now we started, even with starting with the no new revenue rate, when we started the whole budget process, we started with the idea of giving the taxpayers a break. So the actual tax rate that we currently exist under is 468,719. So I think we do ourselves a disservice when we say if we go to 42 to 43, we're raising it. Because in essence, we started a whole 3 cents under. When we started at 0.437777, we started with a tax break. Now, do I think we should try to do more? Of course, but I do think we need to do it responsibly.
I don't mean to change the subject. You had asked the question, under budget for this year, and we're estimating about 9.5 million under budget for this year.
Which could be,
9.5.
that could be an anomaly because of the,
9.5,
what
yes.
we've gone through this year.
Definitely.
What, historically, we haven't been at 9, I mean, what percentage of the budget is that under?
Usually between $3 and $5 million under budget every year, the past five
Haley's gonna pull up
years.
some history.
COVID caused a lot of this because we
Yeah.
couldn't have trials.
That's right. So that's the reason, you really can't, you need to throw out 2020 when you're looking at.
And, you know, and when you look at those
But
numbers.
what do we do with the excess, though? What is, I mean, we have excess. You've got $61 million in excess. And so that's 10, that's $20 million that we're over budget, under budget the last 2 years, 10 and 10. Well, we were 12 and 9, so that's 11. I think if I recall off the top of my head. And so that's $21 million. That's 10 cents
On tax rate.
on the tax rate.
Here's,
we've charged
Haley has
That
pulled
we've
up there.
overcharged the taxpayer.
And these are, of course, 2020 finished and done, so you can see there, you'll see that expenditures line, and that there was $12 million under budget there.
Quiet.
Yes, you are.
You get me talking too much, I'll start.
I just hope you're not, I hope you're just feeling okay.
And then it goes, there you go, Commissioner Smith, and then there's expenditures like 2019, or 4.5 roughly under budget. And so that, once you go that and go, it was a little bit more consistent there. There was a $4 million under budget, so like he was saying, between 3 and 5. And when you take that as a percentage of our entire budget, I think that's
It's
reasonable. It's when you have those big pockets that are over budgeted that you want to hone in on, but when it's spread out, you know, the percentage.
But what happens then over a period of time if you stay 3 million under, 3 million under, 3 million under, 3 million under, and that pot keeps building?
And so that's why every year when we get
Yeah,
to budget
we fix it.
workshops,
Yeah.
That's,
you look
that's,
at that overage, you're
That's what we're
looking
trying
at
to do right now.
appraised
that's
values
why we
going up.
cut the tax rate.
But at one
We're looking
point,
And
we've
that's
got
what
to
we're
start
trying to do
doing the
right here is give
projects.
some of that back.
Yes, and so that's why you've been able to lower that.
right.
We've never had a rollback election in this county.
No, we,
No, we don't
we
want one
avoided it.
either.
Yeah.
We got,
We avoided it in
Went
14.
right-
Yeah.
Yeah, we went.
And
through it.
they kept, shooting at us from Austin. And so,
Yeah.
we've always avoided that.
I think,
And that's commendable.
we've done a good job.
And just real quickly in perspective, one of the reasons too that we went to this is we saw what a wide swing in the tax rate did. And that's what brought on 2013. And we learned from that. And we knew if we built a fund balance, it would hedge against that. And we can't predict what future courts do, but if a future court made a bad decision, it would buffer that and keep you from going to the taxpayer and having to bail like we had to bail out last time. Now, go ahead, Jim. I'm
I
sorry.
was just saying, the 34.5 estimate fund balance under this 2022 budget. All right, 34.5%, which is above our 33 that we're looking for. And maybe 34.1, 34.2, I'm using that as general. How many months, if revenue ended today, how many months would that cover on our bill, what we pay expenditures monthly? Totally.
So it would be,
Is that, I know they used to say you need 3 months.
We use that at 4 months, is 33%. Well, that's kind of what we shot at, but we wanted that as a minimum. That
Sure,
doesn't mean
sure.
it's wrong to go if we're a little bit over it.
No, I don't have a problem
And,
with it,
yeah.
Right.
But I
and
was
so of
just,
course, like 33%, if you, said expenditures are even throughout the year, would be 4 months exactly.
4 months exactly.
Yes.
Okay. Pay for- so
But,
we're-
expenditures, you have a lot up front, you have some to
Yeah,
the end,
and-
but for the most part, you're consistent, your personnel, your supplies, your operating.
Yeah, and I think, excuse me, Ben, I know you have something to follow up on, but I just, under normal budgeting, if we didn't know, we weren't looking to the future. We're playing what's in front of us right now. But that's not what we're doing. We know for a fact that we've got a lot of capital improvements that we're gonna have to do. We have to do it. And I think it's prudent to put more money in the permanent improvement fund, to be able to utilize some of that money for these projects, but and not totally depend on debt. And debt's really helped us get where we are. And I know Commissioner Jones and I have talked about that a lot. But it's the amount of leverage that you want to do, and we've been doing what I'd call 100% leverage, where now my thinking on this is that it'd be good if we could have money to put in there. The good part of it is that if we need to roll it back to keep a handle on tax rates, we've got it, we can do that too. It gives us two options, and it keeps us from spending it for normal expenses. Ben,
Yeah, and, question real quickly, did you say the difference in the 43 and the 42 going into it's $2 million going to?
Yes, and so, see, that our certified taxable values are right over 20 billion. So it makes it easy, just when you divide that by 100 and multiply it by a penny, getting to that 2 million. So a penny is roughly 2 million,
So that goes to capital improvement.
if that's what you chose to do. So,
Would we consider doing half of that?
I consider doing 500,000, like, that's up on that. So that'd be $1 million into the capital improvement.
what's that back into the rate? What's that make the rate?
So that's the scenario, that's the scenario that was up there,
42 and a half?
42.
so he was saying leave it at
42.
42 and then additional 500,000.
So all this scenario right here, the 42, has $1 million going into the permanent improvement, and you're still at a fund balance of 34.3,
So you're saying
which is $1.7 million above 33 and
so you're saying the 425? Is that what
No.
you're saying? The
No,
42.
42.
Put it back, can you put the 425 back up? We're just seeing how fast y'all can switch this stuff around. I've
So
got you on
425
stopwatch here.
with putting $1 million total in permanent improvement of that rate, whatever rate that equals. That's what that looks like.
And that keeps
One
us,
thing-
and that's at 35.1 then ending fund balance, 35.1%.
And, and like, lots of variables at play, but, if this was a perfect year, all those numbers came out exactly like that, we would roll 45.7 million as our ending fund balance into 2023. And so then that's where, if you had this same amount of revenue and this same amount of expenditures, you would be dipping into your fund balance below your target rate. And so, I guess that's where the thoughts come in. Did you want to drop it that much without knowing that yet? But, you have appraised values, you have coming under budget, all of those variables that play into what we're going to move forward into the next year.
Commissioner Miller,
It's never hard to know what they
you
will
had
be.
something?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, especially in the permanent improvement,
unless you want one.
with the permanent improvement budget, is that there are a lot of projects that we seem to be kicking down the road. The judicial courts expansion, I know we even received a letter a couple of years back from Judge Cates. We just added a new court. So we're looking at what we saved in permanent improvement, but there are a lot of projects that we should have done that we never did that would have come from permanent improvement, especially when it comes to the courts. When we look at the fund balance, we made that cut to indigent health, and we said we really weren't sure how that's gonna look, especially going into a new wave of COVID-19. And so then we said, well, we could put this over here, should we need it for her programming, it would be there. So when we kind of erase all of those contingencies away with by reducing the levy, I get a little queasy because we don't have a backup plan. So, like I said, we started with a $7.7 million reduction in taxes and in levy. When we took the current rate and we started looking at our budget through the eyes of the no new revenue rate, because normally we do it with the current rate, but we did it with the no new revenue rate. And we were able to cover everything we needed. So then we look at it and we say, well, how can we trim it a little bit more? And I don't have a problem with that, but in our trimming, I just want to make sure we keep everything in it that we need.
Can you put back up the permanent improvement with the 42.5, what that would do, that if we move that .005 into permanent improvement, see what that slide looks like? Does that make sense?
So just add another $500,000, or just put it as $1 million? So then that would, assuming you spend all your contingencies this next year, the $1 million, then you would be sitting on 2.6 million of fund balance.
Okay, that's after spending the 1.677475.
Yes, sir.
You still have 2.5 million in
So, on that permanent improvement fund, it works just like any fund. You've got it there, you've got, there's 667,000 in projects that he's estimated and $1 million in contingency.
Yes, sir.
Does that amount include the extra 500,000 that we were just talking about?
Yes, so it was sitting at a $500,000.
Okay,
so
there's the
she
revenue.
just
Okay,
increased it.
yeah, I
Yes, sir.
see it. Okay.
Yes, so
Right.
then that's,
So you can come in and at any time access that fund if it's for a building, a repair on a building, anything like that. Anything that's not gonna be used up in the course of anything that won't necessarily depreciate. Is that
for this fund, what could be, so it is,
do you know what the
we
the
do,
statute?
yeah, we do, I mean, it's, there's
We
some
don't have
different
it.
interpretations of what people use sometimes their permanent improvement fund for, but
there. It's a length of time, isn't it? If it's depreciates over 10 years, something like that, that it can be capital improvement, some
well,
number.
it's capital improvements to facilities, property, land, your infrastructure, and then these items are depreciated over, of course, their useful lives, so we check those. But we don't put capital outlay here, so any pieces of equipment, and of course, those are depreciated as well, and that's what's housed in the general fund and capital outlay. So, and here, like I said, you may see it different places, but some may do large repair and maintenance projects out of this fund. We've tried to get I wouldn't say strict, but just be more consistent in that if something in governmental accounting, it says if you are, no matter the cost or the extent of the work, if you are pretty much just getting something back to its usable state, that should be repair and maintenance. It should not be something you depreciate. And so, like when they replace an HVAC unit or a boiler, or all those things where we're not actually increasing the capacity of that facility, we're just replacing something or making it whole again. Those things would come out of general fund.
Increasing the capacity.
Yeah, so something, like if you were, I guess, air conditioning a building that wasn't air conditioned before, something like that. I think that would be a permanent improvement fund. And it's kind of a subjective call a lot of times.
Or if you add it on to the side of a building, that's permanent improvement.
Yes, but
What about the remediation over here? Where did that come out of?
So we have that all rolled up into one project for the remediation as well as, I guess, the demolition as well.
Yeah,
But
that's-
I would see remediation as making the building
But-
usable in a different.
But where are we gonna pay from that?
Oh, sorry. Okay, so that's all in the bond funds. So
But
those-
could we have gone to the permanent improvement?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So when you look at our annual financial report, you'll see, I wish I had it, we could pull up. There's a column that says permanent improvement fund.
Right.
That's a governmental fund. What it actually is a combination. Permanent improvement fund is all of your permanent improvement funds, and that would include your bond funds. So when you look at that, it's Fund 401, which is tax supported, as well as all of the bond funds that you're sitting on as well. So in a perfect world, it's one big fund. When we issue a bond, the money's going into permanent improvement to spend on permanent improvement projects. But I don't mean to make that more complicated.
Well, I think that the projects that we have discussed and have in mind, there's no question they'd be qualified permanent improvement.
Definitely.
All the way from, 20 million or so in downtown jail, converting them to courtrooms, as well as, if we do something off campus with CPS court, you're looking at $2 to $4 million, and so I don't think there'd be any problem at all finding places to do that. And we may choose at the time not to take out of that fund, and but it just seems to me that kind of going forward, that we do consider putting some cash towards that and not rely so much on debt, just thinking about the courts in the future and, giving them the tools to, be able to budget properly and those things, so. But if the general consensus was 42.5, I would be okay with that.
I'd still like to go back and look at it, at the 42, if we can, on the main summary. I just want to point out a couple things on the main summary.
While we're pulling that up, Commissioner Miller, what do you?
Okay. Well, and I go back to the current rate. So when we take the current rate and we subtract the 425, we get right at 043,719 as a reduction of a tax. And we're doing that with balancing our budget on fund balance. We're doing that with an increase in the issuance of debt. We're doing that knowing that we have capital expansion projects that we say we're gonna cover with the current debt, the road projects. And one thing about the road projects, I'm just gonna put a pin right here. I feel like the stepchild. Look like all my road buddy go to precinct 4 because he has more people. And so it's like I'm kind of low on the food chain. And so I get a little nervous when we don't have funding sources for all of our projects. But I know Commissioner Perry's gonna be kind to me as we start talking about our bridge repairs. But I say all that to say, I was here when the court gave the COLA to the retirees and didn't cover it. And I was here when they, we used to get 8% COLA, 6% COLA. And I saw when Commissioner Perry came to the court, I saw when you came to the court and y'all had to make that hard decision of going almost up to the rollback rate. So right now in this moment, y'all might want to just visit that emotion you had that day.
That was called anxiety.
We had to almost go back up to it. You had to bite the bullet. You should have, if I'd have took the picture, I'd show it to you today. And I say all that to say, but you had to do it because you had to cover costs. And so I agree that as you can come down, because when y'all did it, I kind of went, whoa, they went all the way up. When we did it, and you took some heat for it. So I understand incrementally coming back down. But if you come down and you don't come down the right way, you're gonna have the same effect as when that other court spent all that money, and then you looked at all these projects on the table and you said, hey, how do we cover this cost? So the only thing I'm saying is I don't want us just to get bogged down in just looking at numbers on a, black numbers on a white sheet of paper, as much as the projects and the issues that are driving those numbers and what is the most responsible rate that we can give the taxpayer today. It may be next year we look at it and covering expenditures with fund balance is not it wasn't a bad choice with the other revenue sources, the debt and the ARP money. But I just want us to make sure we make the right decision, like I said, because I've lived through both of those situations.
I think about it all the time. Mr. Jones?
I'll just point out that we're still with $500,000 more put into the permanent improvement fund today, giving it $1 million revenue. At 42 cents, we're still at 34.3% fund balance, which is $1.7 million over our stated goal of 33% that we voted on, we approved and ratified in court, and then our eyeball balance of 34% were $400,000 still over. Our total, can y'all go back to the tax, the tax rate sheet? So our certified values went from 18 210 to 20 097. I think that's about a 9% increase. It's over 9%, I know that.
Okay, what is that? That's the difference in,
Taxable values.
Our taxable values increased
okay.
equal, there you go. I'll just do that percentage. And if you'll give more decimal points, it'll go under 10. No, it didn't. Okay. That's gone up in
So,
since we last met.
so when you proposed the last time that you proposed a tax rate, the tax office, the tax assessor collector is the one that certifies of course, the certified taxable values and then those rates. They came back and made adjustments to it. So we have adjusted that, because it was at 19 something, right under 20. So, we've adjusted that. I think it was August the 6th was the last time they had adjusted it, so.
Okay. We started out at $61 million in surplus, in excess revenue, or whatever what you want to call it, fund balance. And our goal is to be close to 33, and we're at 34.3, 34.1, 34.5, everywhere whatever. We've built that fund balance on the back of our taxpayers. And the only way that I understand that you can give some of that back to them, which they rightfully deserve, is by increasing your expenditures over your revenue. That's how you get rid of that excess 61 million. Or
I would say
excess
use
$30 million.
it to fund your budget. You're using
it to fund the budget,
balance,
and the way to
yes.
do that is to have less revenue coming in. Because if you raise the revenue side again, you're not taking away from the surplus.
Correct.
So
you're
you've got,
balancing
so
your
the only
budget.
way you've got to move it down is to have more total expenditure costs than revenue costs, and that will lower your surplus. So that's why we're looking at what we're doing spending-wise, in my mind. I liked the 42, I can live with 42.5, with the extra money going into it. But that's kind of where I am. But to me, the only way to give back to the taxpayers, which is where we created that surplus, is to lower that tax rate. And spend the money, and the expenditures exceed this year revenue. And the 42.5 would get us close to zero on that number we looked at. It's, I think,
So,
50,000.
I want to show you something real quick. Go back to that tax where we, yeah, there, so you're at, so do the percentage change on the tax rates there.
From our current rate to
Yeah, from
to
our current
42.
rate. So if you did 42,
From 468,719 to 42, yeah.
no, it's the other way. That one minus that one, parentheses divided by that one. There you go.
Stuck right at 10%.
We never have started, any calculations with the current rate. We never have taken in consideration the 468,719. We started out at 437,777.
The current rate is what people are paying right now.
Right,
People are paying more and more for everything that they're buying. Their gas, their bread and milk. I think we have a unique opportunity here to, you know, to give a break to the taxpayers
Commissioner,
and still be in our,
but you're right. I see, we, I think, if I remember correctly, back to the beginning, and I've slept and had a little fog in my head since then, but we agreed to use the baseline of the no new revenue rate
Right.
instead of the former.
right. We never did do any calculations on the current rate.
So I guess I've been sitting here listening a lot, and I'm grinning, because you know what? Whatever we do is right. We've worked our rears off, guys, to get to this point where we can have a productive conversation and a debate over how much to give back. And so forgive me for being a little quiet today, but that wasn't the conversation we had 7 years ago,
Yeah.
8 years ago.
True.
We were in trouble. And when a court can sit and have a robust debate over exactly how much to give back,
Yeah,
we win either way in this. I'm fine with the 42. I'm fine with the 42 and a half. Because we've done a good job.
so Commissioner Miller, I'm just trying to illustrate what it would do for the taxpayers right now if we were to drop the tax rate to 42 cents.
right. No, and I
It would,
applaud you and commend you.
on average, it would give a 10% tax cut to the taxpayers right now.
No, and
Which
on
is
that, no,
what-
you're not gonna get a debate out of me on that. I applaud that. I have, people in my precinct that have lost their jobs in the last year and a half, 2 years, that have had their hours, cut back extremely. And they're having trouble just paying mortgage, let alone paying taxes. So I applaud that. My only hesitation, because, you know, I start with the current rate. I drove the judge crazy with that. I start with the current rate, and then you all pulled me to the no new revenue rate, and I sat there for a little bit. I looked at the 43, and I really would have rather stayed at the no new revenue rate, not to create a hardship, because again, I'm to amen to what Commissioner Perry said. We started this process giving the taxpayers a tax cut, and I don't want that to be lost in our debate on how much more do we cut. We started this process giving taxpayers a tax cut. When you look at the increase in total levy, our current rate would have brought in 8.8. Our no new revenue rate would have brought in 2.6. So we started the calculations, giving people over $6 million back. So now we look at how can we even help them. But I don't want to do it at the risk of us being able to function accurately. I don't know, I could close my eyes and maybe go with 425. It was hard to go to 4.3, Like I told you, I started the current rate. But I just can't make the leap to 42, not seeing that it's even a deficit in the total levy. And I do understand what that means, but we have so many things that we still got to make a list for. We still have to make our list for the bond projects. We still have to make our list for the American Rescue Plan Act. There's so many things we haven't tied up that maybe next year we'll be that much more ahead of the curve.
This chart that's up on the board right now, that 10.394 reflects the 42.
Yes.
Okay, what does it reflect at the 425?
It's about 9.5. Yeah, just change that. A little less than 9.5.
So very closely, the 425 or the 42 basically reduces the total tax rate percentage-wise to close to the increase in certified taxable value. Both of them right at 10%, give or take. Okay. You know,
No,
the no new revenue rate doesn't, means that we're not bringing in any more revenue. That doesn't, that rate did not though necessarily reflect that a homeowner's total tax bill from the county would go down.
No, not necessarily.
Because if their values went
Appreciation,
up
yeah.
15% and the no new revenue rate was let's say 10%, there's theoretically a 5%. That's an average. We're talking about an average. So the better we can do here, the closer we can get to the homeowners actually not paying more taxes next year. The lower that rate becomes. Okay.
on the sheet, on the worksheet, isn't there a line for the average? In there information on the average home value and what it went up?
Let me remind myself.
Seems like I've seen that before.
There's on the publication, I know that the tax office does. I think it's in that goes out. I think it has a number that's the average property value of residencies.
Because some of this,
Here or not.
some of your certified value there is, some of your certified value increase, that $1.8 billion increase is gonna be new
Asset.
new property.
Absolutely. And we hope that continues.
What is that,
With all the development.
percentage at 43? If you put 43, what is that, percentage? 8.2 to 9.3? Okay.
Again, you're looking at averages, too, you know,
Yeah.
so what average.
There's always, there's gonna be some under and some over and,
That's the reason they call it average.
yeah.
Well,
Hope it's
just
on a
to-
bell, I hope it's on a pretty steep bell curve, that, they better be on. That's your issue, you're on that board.
he said,
But he's been on that board. So that ought to be a very steep bell curve, if you understand statistics
I
at
mean,
all.
in time and
No, like, those values ought to all be within, like, you shouldn't have a bunch under and a bunch over.
oh, yeah,
The outliers.
consistent
They
value.
should all be bunched here.
Yeah,
Right. Which is the whole
Which is,
5% above
which
or
is
below.
true bell curve.
Yeah, you're
That's,
5 above, 5
you're
below.
saddled
you
in.
think that should,
I mean, do y'all get that information from the,
well,
from the appraiser?
we can get it, yes.
But, there's an audit, that the
Right,
controller
right,
does,
right,
and
that
you have
keeps-
to be within.
Right, and didn't
The
they,
state does that, yeah.
and weren't we under in our latest
You
audit?
can be under or over, but it can't be over 5%.
Well,
So, yeah, it's a-
no, we
there's a-
Weren't we out of
can,
compliance somewhere?
McGregor was out of compliance and they had to go back and reassess that.
So I knew there was some area
And
that
it
was
above.
out of
It was-
compliance.
this year.
It was, no, it was below. It was
below.
And they had
So
to
they-
bring them up. to
They
get-
had the
And
highest.
see, that's
tax
another
rate.
thing
Right.
too.
But
that-
that's where that, Will's saying, that's what tightens that curve up right there.
So that's another thing too, that I don't think we don't look at this perspective, but the legislature mandates, and you know, and I've showed it to you and I've put it on Facebook. Now they don't mandate it as high a percentage anymore, but they mandate that the appraisals go up a certain amount every year for the schools to get
Yeah.
their formula funding. And if they're not in compliance,
That's where they lose money.
And
Schools
so-
to be penalized.
the appraisal districts, they give one value for everybody, and that's what we base our rate off of. And so when the legislature, I mean, what asset would you not invest in where the government mandates that it go up 3 to 5% every year without any question?
And wouldn't we like to be able to project a balanced budget? Saying, well, we balanced our budget because we anticipate these increases.
Yeah,
What a wonderful way to budget.
yeah, that's right.
I can give you history on school funding.
Oh, yeah, you know. all
that's
about it.
right.
I can take anytime you want to talk
Yeah,
about
right.
it. Now's not the time.
Formula funding.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was on school board for 19 years, so I've been, yeah,
there's probably not 3 people in the whole state understand it.
yeah.
And then, like the money that has to, from the bigger, more wealthy ISTs
Robin
that
Hood.
goes back to the state.
Chapter 41. Yeah, I understand all that.
Well, just so we can continue discussing, I think we can narrow down the target. And I'm gonna need some help with this, but I'm gonna make a motion that we go to 42 and a half, and I need to have the breakdown on
Yes, I'll get that for you.
what that is. We also, now, do we have to have the public hearing first?
So you do need to open the public hearing and close it if there's
On the
nobody
budget.
here.
Alright,
Then we must vote on the budget first
Right.
and then vote on the tax rate.
Okay. All right, I'd like to open up the public hearing for the proposed FY 2022 budget. And we had no one register to testify. So seeing no one else in the courtroom, I say that the hearing is now closed. And that I move that we adopt the FY 22 budget as presented by the county auditor.
Oh, second.
There is a second. Any discussion? If no discussion, call for a vote.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Judge Felton,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Pass. Going to D1, this is a vote to ratify the property tax increment reflected in the 2022 budget if required, but we have no need, right?
No, that can be pulled with no action.
Okay, so pull with no action on that. Under D1, vote to set and adopt the 2021 tax rate. And I move that the property tax rate be decreased by the adoption of a tax rate of
Can you read that? I'm sorry.
43 and a half, of which,
42 and a half.
excuse me, 42 and a half, and which 0.402999 for maintenance and operations and 0.022001 for interest and sinking. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion made and second. Okay, let's have more discussion. Is there any other discussion? Okay. No other discussion, I'll call for a vote.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Judge Felton,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
Pass. All right, anything else to come before the court?
Can you, just numbers wise, give me the difference between what last year's, or this year's tax rate and what the adopted tax rate is, how much reduction that is total?
Of course. That is 4.3719 cents.
43719.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And percentage wise, what is that? Decrease.
What was that amount?
Uh,
9.33.
9.33.
9.33%.
Says point 43719.
You wouldn't happen to have a money amount next to it, would you?
I think it's good.
Well, we,
Are they gonna cut their rate?
That's what I understand.
so
Great.
425.
They need to.
There was a big shift.
They need to. I guess they saw the numbers.
Commissioner Miller, were you talking about from last
gonna
year's
go
levy
back
to
and
this
look
year,
at
to next year's
Yeah.
levy?
What
To
that
be
first point
right
is.
under $60,000.
Oh, okay, 60,000.
So it's almost
Yeah,
Okay,
you mean the
On
tax
the,
rate?
on the tax,
in
on
the
the tax, on
scheme
the
of millions and millions of dollars.
values,
Okay.
valuations.
Oh, valuation. yeah.
Billions and
When we first started at the 1st of July, to June, it was 19 something. So,
And so through, challenges, it lowered, is that what you're saying?
it's gone up.
Well, it went up, yeah, to 20, yeah. Or how many lawsuits are still pending out there?
The meeting was this morning at 9. So
Okay, don't know.
so I didn't get to make it yet.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you chose us. Okay, anything else to come before the court? All right, we stand adjourned.
Recording stopped.